I am lying on the cold bathroom floor with my arms wrapped around my knees and my face pressed against the tile. I cannot breathe. My chest feels like someone has reached inside and squeezed my heart until it stopped. There is blood on my arm where my father bit me. There are bruises on my back from where he pushed me into the wall. I am 10 years old and I am wondering if tonight is the night I die. The house is quiet now. My father has passed out on the couch with an empty bottle still clutched in his hand. I can hear him snoring through the thin walls. The same walls that heard me scream. The same walls that never protected me. The same walls that smell like cigarettes and despair and broken promises. I have locked the bathroom door. My hands are shaking so badly that I can barely feel my fingers. There is a ringing in my ears that will not stop. I look at myself in the cracked mirror above the sink and I see a boy I do not recognize. His eyes are red and swollen from crying. His lip is split. There is a bruise forming on his cheek that will be purple by morning. He looks like a ghost. He looks like he has already given up. This is the moment when everything could have ended. This is the moment when a little boy named Frank could have disappeared from the world and nobody would have noticed until it was far too late. This is the moment when darkness felt more welcoming than the light. But something happened in that bathroom. Something that I cannot fully explain even now. Something that changed the entire direction of my life and showed me that even in the deepest pit of suffering, there is a hand reaching down to lift you up. I want to tell you this story not because I want your pity. I want to tell you this story because I know there are other children out there right now, sitting on cold bathroom floors, wondering if anyone in the entire universe cares whether they live or die. I want to tell you this story because miracles are real. They do not always look like lightning bolts from heaven or angels appearing in clouds of glory. Sometimes miracles look like a whisper in the dark. Sometimes miracles look like the courage to survive one more night. Sometimes miracles look like a teacher who finally asks the right question at the right time. My name is Frank and I am 10 years old. At least I was 10 years old when this story began. I am older now, but I still remember every detail of that time as if it happened yesterday. The memories are carved into my soul like words etched into stone. They hurt to touch, but I touch them anyway because they remind me of how far I have come and how much I have to be grateful for. Let me take you back to the beginning. Let me show you the house where I grew up, if you can call what I did growing up. Let me introduce you to the people who were supposed to love me and protect me, but who became the very sources of my deepest pain. The house sat at the end of a dead-end street, in a neighborhood that the rest of the town had forgotten about. The paint was peeling off the wooden siding in long curls that looked like dead skin. The front porch sagged in the middle like it was tired of holding itself up. There was a window in my bedroom that had been broken for as long as I could remember, covered with a piece of cardboard and duct tape that let in the cold air during winter and the mosquitoes during summer. Inside the house, there were 3 rooms plus a bathroom. The kitchen had a stove with only 2 working burners and a refrigerator that hummed so loudly at night it sounded like a sick animal trying to breathe. The living room had a couch where my father slept because there were not enough beds for everyone. My room had a mattress on the floor with sheets that I had not washed in months because the laundromat cost money and money was something we never had. The walls were thin, so thin that I could hear everything. I could hear my father opening bottles in the kitchen. I could hear him talking to himself when he thought I was asleep. I could hear him crying sometimes, late at night, when the alcohol had worn off enough for him to remember the man he used to be. Those walls smelled like old cigarette smoke and sadness. I know that sadness has a smell. It smells like unwashed clothes and empty cupboards and rooms where the windows have not been opened in too long. It smells like giving up. It smells like the slow decay of hope. My father was not always a monster. I need you to understand that. Before the bottles and the anger and the violence, he was a different person. I have memories of him from when I was very young, memories that feel like faded photographs that have been left out in the sun too long. I remember him carrying me on his shoulders at a county fair. I remember him teaching me how to tie my shoes, his big hands patient and gentle as he showed me over and over again until I got it right. I remember him laughing at a joke I told him, even though the joke did not make any sense. That man disappeared slowly, like water evaporating from a puddle. First his job went away, then his smile, then his patience. The bottles started appearing one at a time, then in groups, then in cases that he would bring home and stack in the corner of the kitchen like he was building a wall between himself and the world. When he drank, his eyes would change. The warm brown would become glassy and distant, like he was looking at something far away that no one else could see. His voice would get louder and louder until it filled the entire house. He would stumble and knock things over and curse at the furniture as if it had personally offended him. At first, I was not his target. He would yell at the walls. He would punch the cabinets until his knuckles bled. He would throw things across the room and watch them shatter with a kind of dull satisfaction. But then I became the thing he threw. I became the cabinet he punched. I became the target for all the rage and pain and disappointment that had been building up inside him for years. The first time he hit me, I thought it was an accident. He was reaching for something and his arm swung out and caught me across the face. I fell backward and hit my head on the edge of the kitchen table. I remember looking up at him with stars in my eyes, waiting for him to apologize, waiting for him to scoop me up and check if I was okay. He just looked at me and took another drink. The second time was not an accident. He was angry because I had spilled a glass of water on the floor. It was just water. It would dry. But to him, in that moment, it was the greatest offense anyone had ever committed. He grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and shook me so hard my teeth rattled. Then he threw me against the wall and told me I was worthless. I learned very quickly how to be invisible. I learned how to move without making sound. I learned how to read the level of liquid in a bottle and calculate how many hours I had before the monster arrived. I learned which floorboards creaked and which ones were safe. I learned how to breathe so quietly that you could not even hear me if you were standing right next to me. At night, I would pretend to be asleep even when I was wide awake. I would keep my eyes closed and my body perfectly still, barely breathing, hoping that if I did not move, he would forget I existed. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not. The biting started a few months after the hitting. He would grab my arm in a fit of rage and sink his teeth into my skin like an animal. I do not know why he did this. Maybe words and fists were not enough to express the fury that lived inside him. Maybe he wanted to leave a mark that would remind me who was in control. Whatever the reason, those bite marks became my secret shame. I would wear long sleeves even in the hottest days of summer. I would flinch away from anyone who tried to touch my arms. The scars are still there if you look closely enough. But there was another pain that lived alongside the physical one. A pain that cut even deeper, because it came from the person who was supposed to love me more than anyone else in the world. My mother. I remember her laugh. It was soft and musical, like wind chimes on a summer afternoon. She had dark hair that she would sometimes let me brush, and I would feel like the luckiest boy in the world just to be close to her. She smelled like vanilla and something floral that I could never quite name. When she hugged me, I felt safe. When she sang to me at night, I believed that everything would be okay. She tried to protect me at first. When my father started drinking more, she would put herself between us. She would argue with him late at night when she thought I was sleeping. I would hear her voice through those thin walls, pleading with him to get help, begging him to remember who he used to be. But somewhere along the way, she gave up. I do not know exactly when it happened. It was like watching a flower wilt in slow motion. The light went out of her eyes day by day. Her laughter became less frequent. Her hugs became shorter. She started looking at me with something that was not quite love, something that was more like regret. There was a man who started coming around. He drove a blue car that was nicer than anything we owned. He would park down the street like he was trying to hide, but I saw him. I always saw him. My mother would leave the house on errands that took longer and longer. She would come back with her hair different, her clothes wrinkled, smelling like cologne that was not my father's. I did not understand what was happening. I was just a child, but I knew something was wrong. I knew that my mother was disappearing even while she was still standing right in front of me. The day she left is burned into my memory with perfect clarity. It was a Tuesday morning in March. The sky was gray and threatening rain. My father was passed out on the couch, still drunk from the night before. I was getting ready for school, trying to find clean clothes in the pile on my bedroom floor. I heard her in the hallway. I heard the sound of a suitcase zipper closing. I stepped out of my room and saw her standing by the front door with a bag in each hand. She was wearing her nice dress, the one she saved for special occasions. Her hair was done up in a way I had never seen before. She looked beautiful and strange, like someone I was meeting for the first time. I asked her where she was going. My voice came out small and scared, the voice of a child who already knows the answer but is hopping against hope that he is wrong. She looked at me. For one moment, just one moment, I thought I saw something in her eyes. Pain, guilt, maybe even love. But then it was gone, replaced by something hard and final. She said she had to go. She said she could not stay here anymore. She said that someday I would understand. I did not understand. I still do not understand. I asked if I could come with her. I remember the words catching in my throat, coming out broken and desperate. I told her I would be good. I told her I would be quiet. I told her I would not take up much space. I would eat less. I would not ask for anything. I would be invisible if that was what she needed. She shook her head. She said it was not possible. She said that where she was going, there was no room for me. The blue car pulled up outside. The man inside honked the horn twice, impatient. My mother opened the front door. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain that had just started to fall. She stepped onto the porch without looking back. I stood in the doorway holding my school bag. It was the same school bag she had bought me at the beginning of the year, the one with the superhero on the front that was already starting to peel off. I gripped the straps so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I waited for her to turn around. I waited for her to say my name. I waited for her to run back and wrap her arms around me and tell me that she had made a terrible mistake, that she would never leave me, that she loved me more than anything in the world. She never turned around. She got into the blue car and closed the door. The engine started. The headlights came on, cutting through the gray morning mist. And then she was gone. I stood in that doorway for a long time. The rain started falling harder, but I did not move. I watched the street where her car had been until my eyes blurred with tears and I could not see anything at all. That was the day my heart felt like it fell on the floor and broke into quiet pieces. That was the day I learned that love could disappear without warning, that the people who were supposed to protect you could walk away and never look back, that being a child was not enough to make someone stay. After that, everything got worse. My father blamed me for her leaving. He never said it out loud, but I could see it in the way he looked at me, like I was a reminder of everything he had lost, like my existence was the reason his life had fallen apart. The drinking got heavier. The violence got more frequent. The words he said to me got crueler and more cutting. He told me I was nothing. He told me I was worthless. He told me that nobody would ever love me, that I was unlovable, that even my own mother could not stand to be around me. He told me that I was the reason she left. He told me that if I had been a better son, a quieter son, a smaller son, she might have stayed. I believed him. That is the terrible thing about being a child. You believe what the adults in your life tell you. You do not have the experience or the perspective to question whether the things they say are true. When the person who is supposed to be your protector tells you that you are worthless, you accept it as fact. You carry that belief inside you like a stone in your chest, heavy and cold and impossible to remove. Some days there was no food in the house. My father would spend whatever money we had on alcohol instead of groceries. I learned how to survive on very little. I would eat ketchup packets that I had taken from the school cafeteria. I would drink water until my stomach felt full enough to stop growling. I would lie in bed at night with hunger cramps twisting my insides and tell myself that it was okay, that I did not deserve to eat anyway, that this was just what my life was now. At school, I became a ghost. I sat in the back of the classroom and never raised my hand. I spoke only when spoken to, and even then, my answers were as short as possible. The other kids sensed that something was different about me. Children have a kind of radar for weakness, for otherness. They did not bully me outright, but they kept their distance. They did not want whatever I had to spread to them. Nobody asked about my long sleeves. Nobody asked why I jumped every time a door slammed. Nobody asked why I had dark circles under my eyes, or why I sometimes came to school without having eaten for days. The teachers were too busy or too overwhelmed or too focused on the kids who made noise to notice the one who had learned how to disappear. I became an expert at being invisible. I could walk through an entire day without anyone really seeing me. I could sit in a room full of people and feel completely alone. I had built walls around myself that were even thinner and more fragile than the walls of my house, but they kept everyone out just the same. At home, I learned to read my father like a book written in a dangerous language. I knew from the sound of his footsteps whether he was sober or drunk. I knew from the way he breathed whether he was angry or just sad. I knew when to hide and when to stay perfectly still and when to try to make myself useful in the hope that it might spare me from his rage. But no matter how careful I was, no matter how small I made myself, there were nights when nothing I did was enough. There were nights when he came into my room while I was pretending to sleep. Nights when he would stand over my mattress and breathe heavily, the smell of alcohol filling the room like poison. Nights when he would grab me and drag me out of bed and shake me and hit me and tell me that everything was my fault. I learned not to cry. Crying made it worse. Crying reminded him that I was weak, and weakness enraged him. So I learned to keep the tears locked inside, to push them down into some deep place where they could not escape no matter how badly they wanted to. After he was done, he would stumble back to his couch and pass out again, and I would crawl back to my mattress and curl into a ball and try to convince my body to stop shaking. That is when I started talking to God. I did not grow up in a religious home. We did not go to church. Nobody had ever taught me how to pray. I did not even know if I believed in God or not. But lying there in the dark with pain radiating through my body and fear coiling in my stomach like a snake, I needed to believe that someone was listening. I did not know the right words to say. I did not know the proper way to address the creator of the universe. So I just whispered into the darkness, my voice so quiet that even the thin walls could not hear me. Please help me. Please do not forget me. That was my first prayer. 5 words spoken into the void by a broken child who had nothing left but desperation. I did not hear a voice from the sky. No angel appeared in my bedroom. The pain did not magically disappear. Nothing changed in any obvious way. But something small happened. Something that I cannot explain with logic or science or any framework that makes sense to the rational mind. I felt warm. Not physically warm, though the temperature in my room had not changed. It was a warmth that came from somewhere inside me, or maybe from somewhere outside me, flowing through me like light filling a room that has been dark for too long. I felt like someone was sitting next to me. I could not see anyone. I could not hear anyone, but I felt a presence, a sense that I was not as alone as I had believed. It was as if invisible arms had wrapped around me, holding me together when everything else was trying to tear me apart. I started crying then, but they were different tears. They were not tears of pain or fear or despair. They were tears of something else, something I did not have a name for, but that felt like the first ray of sunshine after years of storm. I do not know how long I lay there, crying and praying and feeling that warmth surround me. Time lost all meaning. The world outside my bedroom ceased to exist. It was just me and that presence, that love, that unnameable something that had found me in my darkest moment and whispered that I was not forgotten. From that night on, I prayed every single day. I did not know the right words, so I just talked. I told God everything. I told him about my father and the drinking and the violence. I told him about my mother and the betrayal and the abandonment. I told him about the hunger and the loneliness and the fear that had become my constant companion. I told him that I was angry. I was angry at my father for hurting me. I was angry at my mother for leaving me. I was angry at the world for letting this happen to a child who had done nothing wrong. And yes, I was angry at God too. I demanded to know why he had let my life become this nightmare. I wanted answers. I wanted explanations. I wanted someone to tell me that there was a reason for all this suffering. I never got answers, not in the way I wanted. God did not appear before me and explain the cosmic purpose behind my pain. He did not reach down from heaven and fix everything with a snap of his divine fingers. But he listened. I know he listened because every time I prayed, that warmth came back. That sense of presence returned. That feeling of being held by invisible arms, of being seen by eyes that I could not see, of being loved by a love that asked nothing in return. I also told God that I still loved my father, even after everything he had done to me, even after all the bruises and bites and cruel words. Part of me still remembered the man he used to be, the one who carried me on his shoulders and taught me to tie my shoes. Part of me still hoped that man was in there somewhere, buried under all the alcohol and rage and pain. I asked God to help him too. I asked God to heal whatever wounds had turned my father into a monster. I asked for grace and mercy for a man who did not deserve it, because I understood, even as a child, that hurt people. My father was not evil. He was broken, and I wanted someone to put him back together. The bathroom became my sanctuary. Whenever things got very bad, whenever I needed to escape from the chaos and the danger, I would lock myself in there. I would sit on the cold floor with my back against the wall and my arms wrapped around my knees. And I would pray. That small room with its cracked tile and dripping faucet became the holiest place I had ever known. It was my church. It was my refuge. It was where I met God over and over again, night after night, month after month. I was surviving, barely. I was not living, not really. I was existing from one moment to the next, getting through each day with the same determination that a drowning person uses to keep their head above water. But I was still here. I had not given up, and some part of me, some small ember that refused to be extinguished, believed that things could get better. Then something happened that changed everything. There was a teacher at my school named Mrs. Allen. She taught 4th grade, which was not even my class. I had seen her in the hallways sometimes, a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes who always seemed to be smiling at someone. She had one of those faces that made you feel safe just by looking at it. I did not know her. We had never spoken. She was just another adult in a world full of adults who had never noticed me, never seen me, never bothered to look past my long sleeves and quiet demeanor to wonder what might be underneath. But Mrs. Allen was different. One day, I was sitting alone on a bench outside during recess. The other kids were playing games on the field, their laughter floating across the playground like music from another planet. I was watching them from a distance, too tired and too hungry to participate, too afraid of being noticed to try. Mrs. Allen walked by on her way somewhere else. She was carrying a stack of papers and moving with purpose. But something made her stop. Something made her turn and look at me, really look at me, in a way that no adult had done for as long as I could remember. She walked over to where I was sitting. She asked if she could join me. I shrugged, which she took as permission. She sat down on the bench beside me, putting her papers in her lap. For a moment, neither of us said anything. We just watched the other kids play. The wind picked up and blew her gray hair across her face. She tucked it behind her ear with a practiced motion. Then she asked me a question. 4 simple words that hit me like a thunderbolt. "Are you okay, Frank?" Nobody had ever asked me that before. Nobody had ever looked at me and wondered if something might be wrong. Nobody had ever taken the time to sit down beside me and ask how I was doing. My mouth opened, and the truth came out like it had been waiting years for someone to ask. The words poured out of me in a flood that I could not control. I told her about my father. I told her about the drinking and the hitting and the biting. I told her about my mother leaving. I told her about the hunger and the fear and the loneliness. I told her about the bathroom floor and the prayers in the dark. I cried so hard I could not breathe. My whole body shook with sobs that had been trapped inside me for so long they felt like they were tearing me apart on the way out. I could not stop. It was like a dam had broken and there was no way to hold back the flood. Mrs. Allen did not tell me to calm down. She did not tell me to stop crying. She did not look uncomfortable or check her watch or try to escape from this child who was falling apart right in front of her. She just stayed. She stayed right there on that bench beside me, and when I had no more words left, she put her arm around my shoulders and held me. She let me cry into her sweater until there were no more tears left. She did not say anything. She did not have to. Her presence said everything. When I finally calmed down, she told me that what was happening to me was not okay. She told me that it was not my fault. She told me that I deserved to be safe and loved and cared for. She told me that she was going to help me. I did not believe her at first. I had been disappointed by adults too many times. I had learned that promises were easily broken, that good intentions meant nothing in a world where children could be hurt and abandoned without consequence. But Mrs. Allen was different. She kept her promise. She reported what I had told her. There were meetings and phone calls and official people asking me questions. A social worker came to see me, a young woman with a soft voice and gentle eyes who spoke to me like I mattered. I was afraid at first. I did not know what was going to happen to me. Part of me was terrified that I had made everything worse by telling the truth. But slowly, carefully, things began to change. My father was required to get help for his drinking. It was not easy for him. He fought against it at first, angry and defensive and convinced that everyone was trying to destroy his life. But somewhere along the way, something broke through to him. Maybe it was the threat of losing me forever. Maybe it was hitting some rock bottom that finally woke him up. Maybe God was working on him too, in ways that I could not see. He went to meetings. He started seeing a therapist. He stopped drinking 1 day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 moment at a time. It was hard and messy and there were setbacks. Recovery is never a straight line, but he was trying. For the first time in years, he was actually trying. I did not live with him anymore. The social workers decided that even with his progress, I needed to be somewhere safe while he focused on getting better. I was afraid of being sent to some terrible place, some institution for unwanted children where I would be just another number in a broken system. Instead, I was placed with a foster family. Their names were Robert and Maria. They had a small house in a neighborhood that was quiet and clean and nothing like the dead-end street where I had grown up. The house had a front porch that did not sag. It had windows that were not covered with cardboard. It had walls that smelled like laundry detergent and home-cooked meals instead of smoke and sadness. The first time I walked into that house, I was overwhelmed by how warm it was. Not just the temperature, though it was warm, but there was a warmth that had nothing to do with heating vents or insulation. It was a warmth that came from love. Robert and Maria had 2 other kids, both foster children like me. There was a girl named Sarah who was 12 and a boy named Marcus who was 8. They welcomed me like I was a long-lost brother. They showed me my room, which was small but had a real bed with clean sheets and a window that looked out on a backyard with a swing set. The first night, we all sat down at the big table in the kitchen to eat dinner together. There was more food on that table than I had seen in months. Roast chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans and fresh bread that Maria had baked herself. My mouth watered. My stomach growled. But what affected me most was not the food. It was the way they talked to me. They asked me questions about myself. They listened to my answers. They said my name over and over like they were practicing it, like they wanted to make sure they got it right. When I spoke, they looked at me, really looked at me. They made eye contact and nodded and responded to what I was saying. They treated me like my words mattered. They treated me like I mattered. I did not know how to handle it at first. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I kept expecting Robert to get angry or Maria to walk away without looking back. I kept my guard up, ready to disappear at the first sign of danger. But the danger never came. Day after day, week after week, month after month, Robert and Maria just kept being kind. They kept being patient. They kept being present. They kept loving me even when I did not know how to love them back. I still have scars. Not just the physical ones, though those are still there too if you look closely enough. The emotional scars run deeper. They take longer to heal. I still miss my mother. I wonder where she is sometimes. I wonder if she ever thinks about the little boy she left standing in the doorway with his school bag, waiting for her to say his name. I wonder if she knows that I survived. I wonder if she cares. I still have bad dreams. I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes, shaking and sweating, convinced that I am back in that house with the thin walls and the empty refrigerator and the monster on the couch. The nightmares are less frequent now, but they have not completely gone away. Maybe they never will. But here is what I know now that I did not know then. When I wake up shaking, I pray. I close my eyes and I reach out to that presence that found me on the bathroom floor all those years ago.